Welcome to today's episode of the Medical Fitness Podcast, powered by the Medical Fitness Association and the Medicine Rehab Fitness Institute. My name's Jeff Young, and I'm the co-founder of the MRF Institute and an adjunct lecturer at City University of New York or CUNY York College in Jamaica, Queens. I'm co-hosting this episode with David Flench, President and CEO of the Medical Fitness Association. Hey, David.
Hey, Jeff, and hello, everybody. Hey, we're excited to have Jeff Jeran on our show today. Jeff is a senior director for Power Wellness, and within that role, he is responsible for Valley Health Wellness and Fitness Center, the Fitness Center of Thibodaux Regional, the center in Rolla, Missouri, and Hampshire Wellness and Fitness Center. He also recently took on the role of interim director of WMC Outpatient Rehabilitation Services. And on top of that, he also serves as the chairman of the board for the Medical Fitness Association. Hey, Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Jeff. Good to talk to you guys again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's start off by hearing more about all of those roles. I mean, you are responsible for a ton of things over there and across the country now. So maybe a little bit about those roles, and then go into your career path, why you got into the industry, and how you progressed up to this point over the years.
Yeah, no, appreciate the question. Yeah, some of the things I do for these roles, I'm directly responsible for operations here in Winchester, Virginia. That's where I'm based out of. Been at this location now, or with this client for 19 years. So been here a while, and directly responsible for hiring, managing the facility, strategic vision, marketing, those types of things. And then with the other three facilities that I'm overseeing, one's in West Virginia, one's in Missouri, and one is in Louisiana, providing operational support to those directors at those locations, which also then requires me to travel to those locations, quarterly or so, whenever time permits. But help manage them and give them some of the expertise that I've learned over the past 18 years. And as you said, just recently in July, took the interim role of outpatient rehabilitation for Winchester Medical Center's largest outpatient rehab clinic. So I'm getting my feet wet into that. It's not a completely new role for me. About 15 years ago, I did a similar role at a smaller hospital, up at Hampshire Memorial Hospital in Romney, West Virginia. But this is a large clinic with a multidisciplinary approach to rehab. So learning how best I can effectively or efficiently manage that business operation and improve it. Let's kind of go around with how did I get to this point? I guess that's kind of a $1 million question. We never really end up where we think we're going to end up. So I'm going to take you back a little bit of where I was and where I thought it was going to be. Um, all through my life, I was in athletics, playing baseball, basketball, and football in high school. Then also took that to college. Went to Fairmont State University to play football on a football scholarship. I was there for about 3 years, and decided I wanted to try baseball, and I transferred to another college in the area, Madison Broadus, and that's where I ended up getting my bachelor's of science degree in sports medicine and athletic training. At that time, I thought, I wasn't going to be a pro athlete by any means, though I thought I would at one time in my life. But I always wanted to be involved in sports, and so that was the route that I kind of took. After graduating with my bachelor's, I took a little bit of time off, kind of figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Moved to Myrtle Beach and then drove across the country and moved to Huntington Beach, California, and was doing a sales job out there. that was fun. But my wife now, who at the time was my girlfriend, wasn't too keen on California, so I came back across the country and moved back home. And while I was trying to figuring out what I wanted to do, I took a job at a commercial fitness center in my hometown. It was called the Spa Fitness Center, and they had pools and saunas and steam rooms and hot tubs. And it was really my first interaction into the fitness space and the fitness industry. I was hired as a salesperson, and I did a really good job with it. I really do enjoy selling, I guess, or especially selling a product that you believe in. And then within 3 months, the owner made me the general manager, and he left for 4 months and went skiing. So I learned how to operate a facility. Now, now at that time, my father was in there working out, and he was a larger man, about 315 pounds. And I got him to start exercising by letting him know that I had a lot I needed to do to make him proud of me, and I wanted him to be around. I wanted him to see all the things I was going to end up doing, and that kind of hit home for him. And he started working out with me at the facility, and he had dropped probably at 75 pounds and was looking good. Was wearing a gold chain and unbuttoning his shirts, and at 60 years old, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, while he was at a golf course, playing golf, he was done with the round and was walking down a set of steps, and he fell, and he fell all the way down head first, and he broke C4, 5, and 6, and became a quadriplegic. Now he wasn't a complete spinal cord injury. He had a 1% chance of regaining some functions, and as once the shock of that kind of wore off, and we got out of the hospital and into the rehab hospital, we started figuring out ways to get him back and his mobility back, and to improve his activities of daily living. Now, unfortunately, while he was in the rehab hospital, he got MRSA, and they wouldn't put him in the pool for pool therapy. So w- the rehab hospital was in Morgantown, West Virginia, and we were living next to the rehab hospital, my mom and myself. And so I just decided to go back to school, as West Virginia had a specialization in aquatic therapy. So I applied for my clinical exercise physiology degree and was accepted and did the aquatic specialization so I could help my dad once I graduated, with some pool therapy. So kind of going through that really gave me a lot of tools and, I guess, how you say, skills, specialized nursing skills. I worked with the physical therapist, the occupational therapist. So I was with him all the time and really kind of had a passion for it, not just because he was my dad, but it was something that made me feel good, to help somebody. We'll fast forward a little bit further. 2 months before I graduated, unfortunately, my father passed away. He had a pressure sore and sent a blood clot, to his heart, and he had passed. So I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I'd spent all that time thinking I was going to be taking care of my father and getting him back together. My wife and I decided to move to Winchester, Virginia, and at that time she had a job, and I was pretty cocky, and I thought I could get a job anywhere. And I found out that they were building a wellness center in her hometown. And so that's what I did is I went and found who was in charge of that and interviewed, with the lady's name is Dina Kent. And she was in charge. She was the executive director of physical therapy, and her passion was also fitness and wellness. And she introduced me to medical fitness, and that was 20 years ago now. And I had never heard of medical fitness. And once I started learning a little bit about it, the light bulb moment hit, clicked in my mind. And now what I do is I take care of other people's parents. And that's where I find my purpose. My father might be gone, but other fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters, I'm helping improve their life so that their lives, they can spend more time with their family. So that's kind of where my career path kind of started, and where I ended up now.
Man, that's awesome, Jeff. I get chills hearing that. That type of personal story that leads to the passion that you have, and it just comes through. And I'm really thankful that you shared that. Everyone's story is different, but man, that's great. And look where it landed you, and now all the people that you are helping, that's fabulous. So I want to kind of, I mean, you had a really cool starting story, got into medical fitness, and now been in that for, over 20 years. What insight have you gained for maybe some of our early career folks, or mid-career even, who are looking to advance professionally, and so some of the important things that you've done to have that type of progression.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think what really helped me the most during my career path is really getting involved in the Medical Fitness Association. Attending the conferences and meeting individuals, and then seeing how involved the members of that association were by committees and different conference committees that they were on, or task force, and they encouraged me to get involved. As a member-driven organization, and you really do get what you put into it. So my I directly attribute my success to to the Medical Fitness Association, also the National Strength and Conditioning Association, getting involved with those types of associations, and making peer contacts. That's how Jeff and I met, and well, I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a little while. But I think getting involved with an association that you work for, whether no matter what industry that you're in, is a big thing. I think if you're young in your career, I think the most important word that you can say is yes. And then as you progress in your career, the most important word that you can say is no. And I still have a hard time saying no, which is why I think I have 5 different roles at the moment. But I'm also very ambitious, and I like challenges, and I like to solve problems, which is why I think I went into clinical exercise physiology, and more of the science aspect of things. But yeah, I think that's a big piece for anyone. If you're working with other types of organizations, or even the hospital associations or hospitals, they have a lot of leadership development types of education. Take advantage of it because it's free for the most part. So every year I try to do 2 or 3 leadership things. I think I don't remember who wrote the book, but I always remember the quote: "You have to sharpen the saw." And so I'm a big believer of that. Always learning, educating yourself, and pushing. So that'd be some of the advice I give.
Um, One thing I didn't know as I was listening to your original story, and David and I were hanging out with each other at a conference a few weeks ago, and I was telling him a little bit about my origin story as it related to the Medical Fitness Association. And now, after hearing your story, I realized that at about the same time, we both were learning about medical fitness. So for me, it was about 19 years ago. And I also had never heard of medical fitness, and I won't get into my story because it's not what this podcast is about. But I just find that interesting that we kind of fell into medical fitness at about the same time. So that was something I didn't realize. Another thing is as relate to what you were just talking about. Back in 2023, I presented at an NSCA state clinic and got to hang out with you in Winchester and you gave me the VIP tour, and we got to have a lot of candid conversation. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that part of you just as a person, but I think it relates to what other people should know is you're just a really proactive person. And you kind of alluded to that, but you're just a really proactive person. And one of the things you said was getting involved and stuff like that. I tell my students at your college all the time, get involved with organizations, and get first just attend the conferences and then get on committees, or whatever you can do. But there's so many opportunities that are out there that people just don't realize, especially people in the fitness side of the fence.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, no.
see,
The more you're involved, and the more people you know, and the bigger your network is, you have other resources that way, and you can bounce ideas off each other, and none of us are competing against each other. We're all competing to improve the lives of the people we serve, and
Exactly.
that's what's unique about it.
Yeah,
If I
exactly.
had somebody, mentoring me that told me about Medical Fitness Association, and yeah, how did you learn about it?
Which Jeff? Me?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, no,
we have the two
That's gonna
Jeff.
happen several times during this podcast.
yeah, right. Um, so Dina Kent, the executive director I was talking about, she had this big vision to open a wellness center in Romney, West Virginia, and then a year later want to open up the larger flagship one for Valley Health. And she reached out to a company called Power Wellness, and that is my employer now. And they introduced me to the Medical Fitness Association, and that was a requirement, was that we would go to the annual conference and start to get involved. So actually, Jim Ellis, who's no longer with Power Wellness, but you know him very well, David. He's the one who kind of mentored me and showed me what medical fitness really was, and kind of got me involved.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you know, it's so important to have, I think, a mentor um, showing you what's important in early on in your career and how to do some of those things. And I don't know if it's happening as much as it used to, or if it's, I'm later in my career, so I try to do that as much as I can with folks. And I'm glad it came up because I do think it's so important. And I've had different mentors through my career, and some have pointed me to the MFA, and then others to other professional organizations. But it's all the same concept of what you just talked about is, get involved, and you're going to get, as much or more out of it that you're putting in. And that's going to be how you start networking, learning, and progressing. Um, Jeff Young, do you have any similar mentorship origins?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, outside of the realm of medical fitness and that Dr. Bill Kramer, and
Mhm.
I'm not going to get too much into that, but basically just having him as a mentor to give me the confidence on how to program, how to design exercise programs for people, and what a huge deal that was for me early on, because then my first job out of college was in medical fitness at Duke Medical Center's Diet and Fitness Center, and we didn't call it medical fitness, but now in hindsight I realize that's what we were in. And so his mentoring really helped me out because I understood how to apply the concepts of programming. And then from a medical fitness standpoint, as you and I talked about a few weeks ago at that conference, it was really Dr. Rob Gottlieb, and introducing me to the Medical Fitness Association, and just like Jeff was saying, realizing how uh, important this was going to be for networking and for my career, and all that. So yeah, that would be my short answer to your question. But without a doubt, mentoring is just it's critical. And it just seemed I agree with you. I'm not sure how um, how popular it is nowadays. How often it's being utilized. I try to tell my students at your college, you need to network, and you need to, whether it's me or someone else, you need to find mentors early on to help guide you along with whatever path you're going to go down.
And I do think that's a good part about a professional association. Having it doesn't even have to be within your own company. It can be within that professional network that you have. And
Yeah, I got one thing. It just popped into my mind when we're talking about mentors. So one of my mentors is a strength and conditioning coach. His name is Mike Barless. And so I met Mike at WVU when I was doing one of my 6 internships, and worked with him with baseball, football, basketball, and wrestling. And we've connected and stayed together for a long time. And he actually came to Winchester and did a presentation at one of our Southeast regionals that we held here. And this weekend, I'm flying down to Fort Lauderdale with my son for a football game. My son's playing in a football game on Saturday, and his main facility is in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm going to run into my mentor and introduce him to my youngest son. So it's pretty cool. My son's going to get to work out with Mike Barwis in his facility before we fly back home.
That
Man,
is
that's
really cool.
awesome. I think one of the best feelings is years later talking to your mentor. I did that last summer. I just called up a guy by the name of Gary Richards. He's out in Arizona now, but hadn't talked to him in years, and just kind of decided to pick up the phone, and I wanted to thank him. That was one of my biggest things, to thank him, and kind of let him know where I was, and he had kind of, I guess, been keeping track on his own. But those are some of the most fulfilling things, and I think that's for a mentor. That's one of the reasons to do it, to see somebody flourish. And I think part of what you said also earlier was how ambitious you were. I think it takes a type of person that has that type of ambition to really take a full advantage of what a mentor is trying to do. So I think that matching up is important too. But yeah, thanks for all those insights.
Yeah.
And we could
Well,
probably have an entire podcast, Jeff, on like your don't take no for an answer, and we could revolve an entire episode on
right.
just those types of things. So
Jeffisms.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, yeah, so let's switch gears, and my next question has to do with patient referrals, which I'm really passionate about. You and I met about 4 years ago. I was the chair of a fitness and medicine member interest group for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and we started collaborating. And I wanted to. The goal was to create what was going to be called a patient referral subcommittee, which then never launched because of the pandemic and blah blah blah. But I actually am presenting a webinar tonight at 7:30 Eastern time on this topic, and I'm a huge believer that most barriers to referral are actually perceived barriers that have solutions. And I think that when we look at the landscape, it can seem really daunting because you hear, oh, like I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I have low back pain, it's not convenient for me to travel to the gym or the medical fitness facility or whatever. Maybe disease symptoms or symptoms from the medication or whatever the case may be. But the landscape is simplified when you start to break it down through deductive reasoning and start thinking critically and creatively and start realizing that actually there's always going to be some examples where there isn't at least not right away a solution to the barrier. But you start realizing that there are solutions to most of the barriers. So I'm curious how you and your team collaborate with clinicians to overcome barriers to referral, and or how do you build referrals into your model?
The Medical Fitness Podcast is brought to you in part by the Medical Fitness Association. Attention, all medical fitness professionals. Get ready for the event of the year. Register today for the Medical Fitness Association Annual Conference, November 19th through the 21st in New Orleans. Network with industry experts and like-minded professionals from around the U.S. and Canada. Gain insights from leading voices in medical fitness and take your career to the next level. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Mark your calendars for November 19 to 21st and join us in New Orleans for the Medical Fitness Association Annual Conference. Register now at medicalfitness.org. That's medicalfitness.org.
No. Yeah, so I think, what we've did here all along the way, um, in the past 19 years is we've always had a medical advisory committee, and that was made up of clinicians, physicians, um, mid-level providers, and then even senior leadership within the hospital. And I think that's a very important piece into any fitness center or medical fitness center. Um, Kind of reviewing what it is to be a medical fitness center, what do we do, talking about our what we call medical integration programs, and that's like our physician referral or provider referral programs. How does that program work? What does it look like? Having them help provide some feedback on to what they would like to see for their patients, and then providing them outcomes and showing them that these programs are working. So I think that's a big piece. how we collaborate with providers and physicians on that. But that's not the only way. You were just saying you were doing a presentation on grand rounds. So that's another great way is to get invited to speak about your provider programs that you have in your facilities, where you're talking to the physicians and the providers, or the health system where I'm at right now. They often do a rehab symposium. They do an oncology symposium, and then a chronic disease symposium. So we're always trying to get in and educate the providers on what it is that we have, how do they make that referral, and then finding out what the pain points and pressure points are for them so that we can make it simply simplified so it's easy to make a referral. Um, so big thing that we do now is we've integrated with in Epic. Power Wellness has developed a system we call PowerLink, where our core operating business system operates and communicates with the electronic medical record of any hospital. Can work with anything. Here at Valley, they use Epic, so we integrate with that. And what's neat about that is that the clinicians, providers can enter an order for medical fitness referral into our program. That referral then comes over to my sales team and fitness team to then contact the patient to get them in for a tour, answer questions, get them to feel a little bit more comfortable and explain what the program is. And the cool thing about it is we're able to send back data to the medical chart, to the patient record. So when they do an assessment, that goes back. When they do a reassessment, that can go back. So it helps the clinician talk a little bit more about what they're doing outside of the center when it comes to exercise. So it's one way that we're able to help manage a patient. Other ways I think is the old pharmaceutical rep method. Go to the provider offices, talk to the office managers, bring them lunch if you can, see if you can talk to folks, and just always have your face out there and talking. October 10th, we're doing an event, which is really cool that this health system does. It's called FaceTime. And so all the clinical services within the health system that any provider would want to use will be at this one location. And then it's built for the providers to come in and then kind of learn about all the different services. So it's an excellent way to meet just about every physician provider in the community that would want to refer to us and have a chance to, for some FaceTime and to talk about the program. So those are some of the things I think that are important. But like I said, it's getting involved and showing your worth. It's just it's a struggle. Like I said, we've been doing it for 19 years, and every year we get better at it. And we're not nowhere near perfect, but I think we're doing pretty well with it now.
I have a quick question for you. Did you say it was called the one of the things you talked about was a power link?
Yeah, PowerLink.
Yeah, so my question is, how difficult was that to like integrate in another and to get like leadership to agree to something like
Mhm.
that? And also how difficult was it to just integrate? Because this is amazing.
Yeah,
And
so that's
and I
I mean
also
that's
just
one of
wonder,
the
is this like a national, is this something that can go at a large scale?
Well, this is something that Power Wellness has developed. They have their own IT team and developers, and for the past, however many years, they've been developing this tool. And so now we manage 30 centers around the U.S., and they all have access to that as long as the client wants that. I mean, there is a cost associated with it that the center pays, not the hospital or the client or whoever we're working with. But it was time consuming, I won't lie, for them to build that and the HL7, all the codes and tunneling and figuring it out and then getting the security. I think the big piece is, you've got to be SOC compliant and HIPAA compliant, and not all places or management companies are. And so that's one unique thing that Power Wellness has that they can offer. And that's why we're starting to see a lot of individuals really reaching out to pick up our technology tools. And I think that's where the company is going to start growing even more
Yeah,
because everybody wants to do something like that, but they don't have the resources, or it's tough to reinvent the wheel. And you don't have to. So
yeah.
that's an area that folks are interested in. At the end of the podcast, I'll give you my email, and I can put you in contact with the right people.
I'm gonna say one other real quick thing and steal David's time here just for a second. And then at the end, you mentioned FaceTime.
Mhm.
And I just really want to quickly say that this is one of the things I love about having this medical fitness podcast because people need to think creatively and think outside the box. And this is just an example of that. I want people to hear that. I actually want to mention it again, which is why I'm doing this right now. That hey, this isn't something that this Jeff just said in passing. These are things that we need to do to connect medicine, rehab, and fitness and learn about each other's scope of practice and widen our perspective, et cetera. So I was really that really stood out to me when you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, and that, we weren't always invited to that, and it took a while. And now, our medical fitness is a service line of the hospital, so
It's
we're seeing
amazing.
just like that.
I love it.
Yeah, I just got to say, Power Wellness has been such a huge supporter of medical fitness and really a leader. I mean, like you're mentioning, all the new technology that's coming out that doesn't even have to be in a power wellness facility, as I understand it. Yeah, when I talk to some of the other executives, the idea is not everybody wants to be managed, but they do like this concept of the integration within the EMRs, and things like that, and um, the other thing is they've really got the model down of creating the medical advisory committees at each of the facilities. That's something that when I talk to other facilities who are trying to implement the full medical fitness model, they struggle with putting together a medical advisory committee. um, they don't really even know where to start. And so I always have some good tips from my past on how to do it. But I'm kind of interested, Jeff Jeran, on how you go about that in terms of maybe not at your own facility there at Valley Health, because it's been going so long, but you've been involved with some of the other power wellness facilities. And
Yeah.
so what's the approach, or what would you suggest other people do if they're looking to, because like you said, that is such a major component of operating within the medical fitness model, but people struggle. What type of things do you think are important?
Yeah. Well, I think it's real important. One, you kind of need to develop a document. I call it a charter, where it outlines exactly what the committee is, how often it's going to meet, what is it that we're going to review and talk about, and kind of a high level overview of what medical fitness is. And so you can put your expectations out so that these committee members then can meet them, because they're going to choose whether or not to be part of that. And if they sign on, you're expecting them to meet those expectations. And so I've always used what I call a medical MAC charter, is what we call it, the MAC charter. And every year I have them re-sign and put the dates of the meetings. And then you got to kind of find the right folks, the ones that believe fitness and exercise is important, and who have a passion for it. And then that's where they get a complimentary membership if they attend two of the four or three of the four meetings a year, because I want them to use the center and I want them to see what we do here, because then their feedback is much more relevant. If they're from the outside and they don't understand what we do inside the center, it makes for a harder type of communication and back and forth banter, which would improve the center. But I think that's what it takes, is finding other like-minded providers that believe in exercise and that exercise is medicine, and they just don't understand how to do it, or don't have the time to do it, and want to be part of a facility that they feel safe sending their patients to. That those make the best ones. And so really identifying those providers that the things that exercise can help address. That's what you need to look for.
Yeah, great tips there. A lot of times the medical advisory committee has folks from rehabilitation too. You're now in that seat, as well as the, the fitness and wellness side of things. So, kind of turning to the viewpoint of outpatient rehab and your role now overseeing a large department within the hospital healthcare system. What do you see as some specific ways that physical therapy and other rehab services plus fitness, how can they all support each other and support the success?
Yeah, no, I think it's real important. What we do here, and we've been doing for years, but even before I started overseeing them, was trying to get their patients over to the fitness side. So when they were doing therapy, I would want them to use our equipment. So then the patients start to understand and see other like people that look like them and have similar injuries are using the fitness center, so they get kind of comfortable. But not only for the patients, but also then for the clinicians to see that our fitness specialists and how they work with the clients to get them kind of talking and to help that pass off. When they're we all know insurance is going to terminate somebody based on utilization, and they may still need therapy, and a lot of folks then get discharged and go home, and then it starts that cycle all over. What brought them there to begin with, they're going to be back in 6 months. So having a place for those patients to come and continue on their journey of recovery is very important. And that's where, having the therapist work with our fitness specialist, and they know each other really well. They know their strengths and who to refer to. And then having that back and forth communication. So when we may have a client who's maybe looking for a rehab or need that, we know who to refer them to. And then also for us to be able to ask questions when we're programming. Hey, would you do with this individual? They're explaining this, and so it really becomes a multidisciplinary team within the facility. Some of the other things that we try to do then to foster that, anybody that gets discharged from our rehab services, we give them our corporate rate, and they stay at the corporate rate as long as they're a member. They cancel and then come back, then they come back as a normal member. But it's a substantial, it's $25 difference per month. So that's just one nice thing. It also helps the therapy side. It's a nice little perk for them, and it just really kind of it's just another way of getting folks into the facility that we can continue to help them progress on their journey. Um, but yeah, I think educating, having in services or hosting, like the past 3 years, we've hosted some pretty large national high dollar certifications. And a lot of our PTs, physical therapists, will come over and take part of those certifications and start learning a little bit more about what we're looking at on the fitness side. And then, that just builds that camaraderie. So it's not an us versus them, or this discipline and this discipline. We all help each other.
How long have you been in this role again?
I've been in this role since June, but like I said, about 15 years ago, I ran an inpatient and outpatient at a smaller facility and kind of learned some of those tips and things that worked. And so when I took over the facility here in Winchester, that was one of the things I wanted to incorporate anyway, was that back and forth and utilizing each other, because we're all experts in something, and we don't know other things. And so it's okay not to know, but you have people you can talk to and learn.
So this actually leads perfectly to my next question because, as you know, I've been working alongside physical therapists and basically in sports medicine and rehab settings for most of the last 20 years of my career. So this is a language I really speak. And so many things you hit on are the things that I've been in different environments, hospital environments, but also private practices, and some did things better than others. But you really hit on a lot of the things that help foster that collaboration in services, and basically all the things you said. But now my question for you is, like, you as in a leadership role and you're new, so bring me into the institution in the sense of, how does a newbie like yourself be able to, for lack of a better phrase, like, talk the rehab side into incorporating this stuff? Was there any pushback? Was it easy? How do you go about it? Because I just know from my own, look, just my own experience. Maybe this isn't nationwide, but in my own experience, there can be pushback.
Yeah,
It
no.
tends to be, two separate fields, and so that's the reason why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, no, and when I took over here, I think it's been 12 or 13 years ago. Yeah, there was a little bit of pushback, and we didn't like that side of the building. They didn't like our side of the building, and I guess that's just me being bullheaded and persistent. Like I don't know, I'm pretty easy to talk to, and so I just go over and sit down and talk. And what are your concerns, and then I address those concerns. And I think that's what leaders are supposed to do: is where are the roadblocks and the pressure points to get something done, because in the end we all have the same goal. And if you can talk about that and how the fitness side can help the rehab side achieve those patient goals and satisfaction numbers and photo scores and all of that, we show them how we can help them, and then I show them how they can help us, and then it's kind of just building that team aspect of it. But it takes a leader who can communicate that, and like, again, it's the expectation. I'll give you a quick little rundown of how I always remember: you have to tell people what your expectations are, or they can't meet them. My very first MFA conference, our facility in Romney, West Virginia, won the Medical Fitness Center of the Year. It was our first year in operation. Our executive director of rehab, Dina Kim, was so excited. She flew me and then my assistant director and her to San Antonio. And after we won this award, she took us out to a nice seafood dinner. And we were sitting at the table, and the waiter came up, and I guess we had already had our drinks, and we were ordering appetizers. And she looked at the waiter and she said, "Do you see that iced tea right there?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "I expect that to be filled up 7 times by the end of the dinner. And every time it's at halfway full, I expect you to fill it up. And your tip depends on it." And this guy's eyes got real big, and my eyes and Trina's eyes got real big. And he walked off, and she looked at me and she said, "Jeff, if you don't tell people your expectations, they can't meet them." I then said to her, "That might be true, but that guy's going to crap in your food." I was like, but it was very profound, and it was a profound lesson. And just because I had never seen anybody talk to anybody like that, but I always remember that, and so I do that with my kids, and I realize, like, if I don't tell them my expectations, they're never going to meet them. And so I think that's where leaders, you gotta express what your expectation is, and my expectation is our teams work together, and we're going to work together for the best interest of the patient that we're working with.
Can I tell you something? Back in about 2014, when I was still working in this Mount Sinai system, I had a meeting with two physicians. Almost doesn't matter. One was family medicine, but in any case, we were the initial meeting was how are we going to collaborate with each other, and I knew one of the physicians, but the family medicine physician I didn't know, so it was my first time meeting him. And at the end of that meeting, he said, similar to what you just said, he goes, we're going to meet again in such and such date and time, and I want us all to write down on paper what our expectations are of each other in this collaboration, etc. And we're going to start our next meeting talking about expectations. Just throw whatever expectations of yourself, like ourselves,
Mhm.
and of each other. What do we expect? And again, just like with you, that was a light bulb moment with me, because I thought to myself, what a kindergarten concept that I wasn't even aware of, and how incredibly important it is. You need to set expectations. So yeah, I had a very somewhat similar light bulb moment situation that I've carried with me ever since. So yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I've used that throughout my career, and so far it hasn't led me the wrong way. And I build pretty good teams. I think that's what I am. I'm a team builder.
That's exactly right. Love it.
Well, Jeff, I've been to your facility, and it's amazing. I try to keep up and check things out on social media, because you're always doing something, it seems like, and you just take a very innovative approach, I feel like, in your facilities, and you're constantly updating and evolving your programs and services and offerings. So maybe let's talk about some of the things that you've recently done in that respect? And are there more things on the horizon that you're thinking about or planning now that you're excited about launching?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's the fun part of the job is designing and innovating and kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. So I think what I try to do is to find out what we're lacking, or something. What is it that we're not able to offer that we could offer, with a medical fitness focus to it? So I spent the past 5 6 years kind of learning from more of the commercial side of the industry and just finding what they do really well and kind of taking some of the concepts that they do because they make a lot of sense, and bringing them into a medical fitness center. So just an example, functional fitness is very important, and we weren't able to offer that. We have what we had, what I call a traditional American facility. Tons of cardio, tons of strength equipment, wall to wall. No place to do any kind of functional training or calisthenics or body movements, and that's not a lot of fun. Doing this for 15 years and not really going anywhere. It's sad. So um, we recently put in about a 66,000 square foot functional training facility with indoor turf and Olympic weight racks and functional rigs and every type of tool and rope and anything you can think of into this facility, and being able to offer a whole different modality of fitness to our clientele, which at that time average age was about 4 or 55. Once we opened this aspect of it, our average age came down. It's right around 48, 49 now, um, which is pretty cool because we're attracting a little bit younger demographic, but still not what commercial gyms do. So we're still able to attract our bread and butter, but it's just getting those folks into here. And what I kind of think of functional training is, that's what we do outside of the gym. It's what we do in our daily life. It's functional movement. Um, I always laugh when people do abdominal exercises laying on the ground all the time. I'm like, what are you, a porn star? Like, that's not where you need your core at. So you need to stand up and do your core. And some people are like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." I'm like, "Yeah, like I don't need to be strong on the ground, So that it's got to be fun. Fitness is supposed to be fun, and if it's not fun, people leave, and then you can't affect the change that you need. So I think constantly adding fun things, but not being fatty. 'Cause fads are fads, trends are trends. I look for trends. And a trend is something that's been on the scene for more than 5 years. Then it's something that's ingrained in the industry. So that's something that we did. And then another area that we weren't able to address was our youth members. You had to be 12 years of age or older to exercise on our fitness floor. Well, childhood, there's a lot of childhood obesity and a lot of problems outside of before 12 years old. And so I wanted to bring in a program that addressed kids. And so I found a group that I really love working with, Parisi Speed School. Talk to Bill Parisi quite often, and he's quite a unique individual. And he's another one of those types of mentors. And right now he's been mentoring some of my staff. And so we brought that in so that we were able to attract 7-year-olds and on up, not only teaching movement of exercise, but also teaching confidence. And that's really big as kids are growing up. They need confidence, they need to know how to move, and they need to see that adults are moving, because then they're more likely to become exercising adults later in life. When I grew up, I never saw my parents exercise. I never even went to a gym until I was 14 years old, and that was only because I was playing sports. um, so it wasn't normal for me, and I wanted to be normal for kids to exercise. So that's some of the things. Recently upgraded our pools to salt water, with my friends at TMI Aquatics. Timothy and Michelle are fantastic. So we took our old dirty chlorine systems out and put in these new beautiful state of the art chlorine generators, and uh, our pool volume has doubled since we did that. So we were at 250 bathers per day, and now we're at 500 bathers per day, and it's just a much better environment for our members. It's better for their skin, their hair, and they love it. So those are some of the cool things. But what I'm working on next, what I'm really passionate about, is what we do in these facilities is we inflame the body, right? Everything that we do, we're causing inflammation from exercise and stress on the body, but we don't really focus a lot on recovery. And recovery is the next area that I want to bring into the facility. I've been slowly introducing it through whole body vibration, percussion guns, massage therapy. But I want to bring in more recovery because I think that is a very important piece of medical fitness. Is we want to inflame the body, but then we want to get it, get the inflammation out so folks feel better and they come back. Because what ends up happening is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the gym's super busy, but Thursday, Friday, people are hurting and they don't come in. Well, we want to be able to offer a way for them to come in where they feel better and it helps them sleep, helps them recover at night, because that's where we grow. We grow when we sleep, and recovery is being hydrated. It's sleeping. It's all the things that we need to be doing to our body to take care of, and that's something that I'm starting to get really passionate about, and haven't figured it out yet, but slowly incorporating it.
As you were going through all this stuff, Dave, you look like you were getting ready to say something. So you go ahead first.
I was just going to say, with your average age is right around where I am, and so I think as a person gets older, they understand the importance of recovery probably more than they do when they were younger.
Yes.
Maybe that today's high performance athletes are doing that recovery at a younger age, but so to me this seems like it's a perfect fit for a medical fitness center that has a much higher average age. And so yeah, you see that throughout the industry, but I think it's probably even more important as someone ages to make sure that the recovery is part of their program. And it doesn't always have to be the a long duration of time that somebody spends on some of these things. You can still get your normal workouts and do some of these recovery things in a small amount of time, but be impactful for health.
And what I was gonna say was, as you were going through all this stuff, fortunately for me, I was able to visualize everything you're talking about because I was able to, hang out with you for several hours and you gave me the VIP tour. So it was really cool as you were going through this stuff for me to be able to visualize the different areas of the facility. And I just wish that there was a way that, everyone rather than listen to this on Spotify or Apple or whatever, that they'd actually come to the YouTube channel and maybe I put up pictures so they could actually get a visual of this because it's really important. It's not just words coming out of your mouth. It's really important the stuff that you talked about and how you integrate all this stuff so that from the user standpoint, they are experiencing the functional fitness, the cradle to grave, et cetera, the pools, the recovery and all that stuff. So you definitely painted the visual, but I just don't think it could ever do justice unless you actually could be at that facility. And then again, light bulbs going off in people's heads maybe and making them realize that, maybe we need to be thinking outside the box, just like Jeff Jeran does. So that's one thing I want to say. Well, unfortunately, we need to wrap this up. And so before we do, I want to say one last thing. I'm in a doctoral program in kinesiology. I'm about halfway through the program. The course I'm in right now, so I'm not pursuing a PhD. I'm pursuing an EDD, Doctor of Education, and I've actually up until the course I'm in right now, which is called Action Research. I was of the incorrect view moving through the program that when it came time to my dissertation, I was going to be doing traditional research, where control group and intervention groups, et cetera, and it ends up, without going into too long of a story, that what action research is what you've been talking about for this entire uh, episode. And you are a master at action research. So, what action research is really, in a nutshell, is just kind of like looking at your environment, your landscape, and um, uh, basically coming up with what your problem questions is, the things that you want to solve and improve. So you're looking at your landscape, you see what you want to improve, and then you, rather than be a principal investigator like in traditional research where you're separate from the research itself, you're actually very actively involved and you collaborate and you improve on things, but then you have meetings and you reflect with the people you're collaborating with, and then you go through round two and you do it all again. You just try to improve on the areas that didn't get improved on that well in the beginning, or maybe you just saw some other themes expose themselves that you want to improve on. And it's a cyclical thing. So action research really is life. That's the way I look at it. Now that I'm learning about this stuff, it's like this is what we should be doing with life. And Jeff Jeran, you are a master at action research, without a doubt.
That's a cool term that you've put to that. I have not heard that before,
Yeah,
but
I didn't.
I definitely agree.
Yeah,
Things that he does, and I think it's anybody who is a the top level operator and executive that's able to evolve over time and continue to have the success. And I know Jeff Duran, your facility just continues to do amazing things. And I can remember just real quick off of what you were saying, this action research. It reminds me, I would come out to my facility and I'd just stand there and I'd watch and I'd think about, what else can we do? And usually some staff would come by and they'd go, "Uh oh, Dave's he's thinking about something. What's next?" But that's a cool term to actually put behind what you were just talking about.
yeah. Yeah, the institution I'm at there in the field of kinesiology is pioneering action research. So it's new. It's very new to the field of kinesiology, obviously, because they're pioneering it. But yeah, because I'm in the term I'm in right now is the action research course. This is always in my mind now, and as I'm as we're moving through this podcast, I'm thinking to myself, they don't realize it, but this is actually exactly what we're talking
Mm.
about. And I say Jeff Duran, but you too, David. You're both just masters at this, and I'm very fortunate to be able to learn about it and realize that, hey, this applies to life. But in any case, unfortunately, we need to wrap this up. So Jeff, first of all, thank you ridiculously for being a returning guest on the Medical Fitness Podcast. And I also just want to, for our listeners and viewers' sake, how can people follow you? Get to know. I know you're active on LinkedIn, but however you want to, do your outro and how people can learn more about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, no, you can follow me on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name's Jeff Jeran, Jeran, or email me. My email is jjeran@powerwellness.com. Feel free to reach out. And if that doesn't work, reach out to David and the Medical Fitness Association. They're always sending folks to me. And that's one thing I really do. I love to answer questions and solve problems. So I probably talk to 3 or 4 people a week from all over the United States, and trying to help them out any way I can, and I learn from them just as much as they probably learn from me. So
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been awesome having you on the show. You'll definitely be back, I'm sure, again. You just have so much great knowledge to share. And that the other thing I'll say, the other way people can always get a hold of you, you're always at all of the conferences, it seems, all of the MFA conferences and more. So I think that's one way when somebody's out there at a conference that you're at. I know you're always more than willing to meet with people and share and all of that. So, and that's one of the best things about our industry, I think, is especially the medical fitness industry. But again, thank you for your time today.
yeah, and our MFA conference is in New Orleans, and I really like that town. I know it well, so come see me.
Hey, I look forward to seeing you down there too. So
Yeah,
I'll be
Jeff.
glad to catch up with you down there.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, thanks,
Thanks so
fellas.
much.
This episode of the Medical Fitness Podcast is brought to you by the Medicine, Rehab, and Fitness Institute. The MRFI has been co-founded by medical, rehab, and fitness practitioners who see the medical necessity in getting people to be more active and fit. There is a sleeping giant of opportunity to building a more active population, an opportunity which lies in a more effective medical referral pathway to exercise programs and professionals equipped to serve that pathway. To learn more about our services and how we're working to make this a reality, visit mrfinstitute.org. That's mrfinstitute.org.